One drop of blood. That was the promise. One tiny drop from your fingertip, and a sleek black machine would run hundreds of medical tests. Cancer markers, diabetes, infections, cheap, fast, painless. Medicine would never be the same. The founder was 19 when she dropped out of Stanford. By 30, she was the youngest self-made female billionaire in history. Her company was worth $9 billion. Presidents praised her. Generals joined her board. And inside that sleek black machine, nothing that worked. Not once. Not ever. This is the story of Theranos, the $9 billion machine that never worked. 2003. Elizabeth Holmes is a 19-year-old chemical engineering student with an idea and an obsession. The idea? Run any blood test from a few drops instead of vials. The obsession? Steve Jobs. She copies everything. The black turtlenecks, the green juice, even the deep baritone voice. Witnesses say she trained herself to speak lower because it sounded more powerful. And Silicon Valley eats it up. Investors pour in nearly $1 billion. Rupert Murdoch, the Walton family, the DeVos family. Her board reads like a White House reunion. Henry Kissinger, George Shultz, 2 former secretaries of state, future defense secretary James Mattis. Here's the strange part. Almost none of them were doctors. Almost none of them were scientists. Nobody could check her work. And that was exactly the point. The machine was called the Edison. And the Edison was a disaster. It could barely run a dozen basic tests, not hundreds. Results came back wrong. Samples leaked. Parts broke. In demos for investors, the Edison would sometimes fail live. So employees secretly ran the samples on regular commercial machines in another room and presented the results as Edisons. Inside the company, engineers who raised concerns were fired or silenced with brutal legal threats. Departments were walled off from each other so no one could see the whole picture. Employees called the culture a bubble of fear. The technology didn't improve. The story did. Then it stopped being a Silicon Valley story and became a medical one. In 2013, Walgreens rolled out Theranos testing to real customers, real people, real diagnoses. Most of those samples were never run on the Edison at all. They were run on modified commercial machines, using tiny diluted samples they were never designed for. The results? Unreliable. Patients were told their results suggested cancer scares that weren't real. Medication doses based on numbers that were simply wrong. This is the line that separates Theranos from every other startup that overpromised. This wasn't just burning investor money. This was gambling with people's health. The people who broke the silence weren't regulators. They were 2 junior employees in their 20s. One of them was Tyler Shultz, the grandson of board member George Shultz. He reported the failures, and when the company came after him, he refused to back down, even as it split his own family apart. Their evidence reached an investigative reporter at the Wall Street Journal, John Carreyrou. In October 2015, his story landed like a bomb. The great blood testing revolution was running on other companies' machines, and even those results couldn't be trusted. Regulators moved in and found what employees already knew. Tests voided by the tens of thousands. The lab shut down. Walgreens walked away. The $9 billion valuation went to zero. In 2022, Elizabeth Holmes was convicted of fraud. 11 years in prison. The woman who wanted to be the next Steve Jobs became the face of Silicon Valley's greatest lie. But here's the question that lingers. Hundreds of brilliant, powerful people looked at Theranos and saw what they wanted to see. A teenage genius. A world-changing machine. A perfect story. Nobody asked the only question that mattered. Does it actually work? If you want more stories about how fortunes are built and how they burn, subscribe. Next, the crypto king who lost $32 billion in 10 days.